and half of them died.
There'd be a crepe you put over the door. It was a piece of black material you hung over the top of the door, so you know if you saw a crepe on the door, then you know somebody died in that house.
You know, back then, some houses were so bad off, you know. They didn't have any room to do a funeral. Sometimes they went to somebody else's house to do their funeral.
Yeah,
you know.
You never heard of no funeral homes or funeral parlors back then.
Oh, they just bury you right in the ground.
Yeah, just bury you right from the home.
That's right. You know, my daddy, now he told me he buried people for a while.
I remember.
And he did all right. Till one person he went to bury, and he heard a noise. Scared him to death.
That did it. No more. No more.
Then he'd have a party.
Get all drunk up.
That's right. We had one right here for my father's grandmother.
Yeah, laid her out right in that room there, I remember.
That's right. And then they didn't worry nothing about no gravestone.
No, that just started. That ain't so long started.
You know, I'm still trying to get a gravestone for my mother, and she doesn't have none yet. But I know where she's buried at, because you always leave some kind of marker, you know, to find it.
Yeah, a lot of folks in our church, they don't have no markers neither, but they ain't forgotten.
One glad morning, when this life is over,
I'll fly away
to that land on God's celestial shore. Oh,
It was a completely different world back then.
It
really was.
It's funny how things change.
Because we were Jews in Ellicott City, we were treated differently.
We absolutely were. I was hurt by it, but I see it completely differently now.
The black children didn't even go to our schools.
They all lived on a different street.
We didn't think anything of it.
People were pleasant to our faces, but behind our backs, it was different. I know. When we were kids, in school, we played with all the other kids. The teachers were marvelous. I belonged to the Girl Scout troop at the Methodist Church, and the Lutheran pastor's daughter was my best friend. But when we got older, then things began to change. When I was 16, a good friend said to me, "I'm having a party, and I'd love to invite you, but my mother says you can't come because you're Jewish."
She didn't think there was anything wrong with that.
The next day, that same girl wanted to be my friend.
But we knew we were different.
That's just how it was.
It was
a completely different world back then. It really was.
Well, there was this town over there called Oella, and we colored people didn't go over there. Well, they used to have this name that they called colored people, so I didn't go over there. Nobody did. Now, they couldn't stop you from going over there, but if you did, you'd have trouble. You'd either get in a fight or, well, I didn't know. Colored people stayed to themselves, and the white people did too. They didn't associate in a big way like they do today.
In Ellicott City, all the black people lived on Fells Lane. Of course, we didn't say black people then, we said colored people. All the people who worked in my father's store were black. I especially remember Dallas and Cubby. They worked for my father for a long time, from when they were kids till they were grown men. Went into the army for World War II. It felt to my sister and I like Dallas and Cubby were part of our family. They drove the truck, they took deliveries, they took us everywhere we needed to go. They watched over us. And there were girls who worked in the store with my mother. They weren't girls. They were grown black women. But one of them was a laundress, and I remember when Mother and Daddy were busy, she would take us to her house, and we'd play with her kids while she worked. I don't remember that her kids ever came to our house to play.
On the day that they integrated the schools, it was awful. But my mother was a very determined woman. My little brother was going to the 1st grade, and I was going to the 6th grade. So she took him by one hand and me by the other, and there we were, the only 2 blacks going to school on the first day of integration. Well, when we got to the door, there were 2 Secret Servicemen standing there. Might have been the FBI. And they looked like they were 10 feet tall, scared me half to death. But my mother, she just walked right up to the door, and they opened it. And we went right on in. And then somebody came out and told us where my little brother was to go and where I was to go. So I walked to the door of the 6th grade, and I looked in. The class was filled with white kids. And I said, oh God, I know they're going to kill me. You know, you think things like that. And then Mr. Orenbach, he said, come on in. And the class got real quiet. Well, when I walked in, everybody was real friendly. I mean, 6th grade, that was a perfect year. And then when we went to junior high, we were called nigger, nigger, nigger every day. It was a completely different world back then. It really was.
Things finally began to change after the federal government stepped in.
Now, we colored people, we worked downtown in department stores in Baltimore City. We did all the work. We swept the floors. We ran the elevators. We waited on customers. And I mean, if you're my sister and you come in and you want to try on a dress and you're told you can't try on a dress, and we work in there. So what we did, we wait until they're going to have a big sale. And then, when the bell sounded for the store to open, and the elevator doors opened, not a maid or a porter anywhere hit that floor.
Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome
And that's how we broke it up. And after that, things began to move just a little bit.
When my kids were in school, they had buses coming all through this neighborhood for the white kids. I mean, they had buses just stopping here and stopping there for the white kids. But my children had to walk over 6 blocks to catch a school bus. So I wrote a letter to the Board of Education telling them where these kids are being sent. And then somebody's child was killed trying to cross Washington Boulevard to catch a school bus. After that, they had that bus coming right here to this corner. And before it was all over, they were all riding the same bus, and they were all going to the same schools.
I remember not being allowed to go in the house where my mama was. She worked there as a domestic. Well, years later, a white woman, a friend of ours, bought that same house. And she had a Christmas party. Well, I danced and had a rug that year. I mean, we danced and danced. Now, the whole owner, he's been dead pushing up daisies for a long time. But if he could have, he would have come back and run us out of there. But of course, he couldn't. So, the bunch of us, we had a ball.
Stories kept secret, stories revealed, day-to-day lives, feelings unsealed, events that happened, events that threw us, events that brought great learning to us. What appears on the surface is only the skin. It's deep in our hearts where the weaving begins. The weaving of strands from within and without, the weaving of threads from one to another. We are grandfather, grandmother, sister, brother. In daring to start sharing comes the caring that ends the tearing of this world in two. Stories unfurled, passions uncurled, we whirl on a cord of history, a spiral that spins and gives our lives roots, a place to grow in. Now we'd like to close with a song.
The sound of those mechanical looms in that valley was a bang, quick sound. And the birds to the chorus are really, so feel free to join in. Tell me a story, spin me a yarn. 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 We can all weave, we can all spin, we can all learn to love others in by telling our stories, sharing our songs. Together we bring ourselves home. Tell me a story, spin me a yarn. Tell me a story, spin me a yarn. Tell me a story, spin me a yarn. Tell me a story, spin me a yarn.
Introduce officially Walter Jones Jr., Gwen Marable, Gail Rosen, probably figured out I'm Sally Warris.